Namaste and in la catch, and welcome to this week's episode of One World, a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and as always, I'm going to tell you what those two words mean in case you didn't know. Namaste comes from the Sanskrit, ancient language. Spoken, it means, or it's called Brahmi, and it simply means the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. The other term, in la catch, comes from the Mayan civilization, also ancient, and it means I am another you. So if we look at these two ancient civilizations and what they knew then, how can we bring that forward to now and recognize that in each and every person that you meet on a daily basis? Try it. Find out for yourself what kind of difference it'll make in your life. Great. So this week's episode, I'm featuring and welcoming Michaell Magrutsche, and I hope I pronounced that right.
Perfect.
Michaell is a California multimedia artist, writer, and advisor who was born in Vienna, Austria. He's got a couple of books that I found, and I guess he's got three more. The Smart of Art, A New Consciousness to Awaken Our Enthusiasm for Art, Imagination, 300 paintings, easy for me to say, in 3 days. That had to have been a feat. And Michaell says, my main goal in life is to find more of myself. This is what I apply in every part of my life, especially in all artistic expressions. I found art is the most effective tool to achieve this. I live my life to be the best me that I can be ever. Wonderful. Michaell, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi, Zen. Yeah, I love what you do. And you said, I didn't have another chance. I was never be useful for any system. I was a sick child. I could never, and art, I don't know if I would have chosen art as such almost my religion. If it would have just fit into systems, wouldn't stutter, wouldn't be dyslexic, would just, everything would be hunky-dory. I don't know if I would get to where I am today.
Well, weren't those actually gifts that were unrecognized to begin with? And, when we have these conditions or things that judged by others, right? And we're kind of put in a box and we're said, you're this way. And yet there's something within us that spurs us on to actually doing things and being successful and having fun in life and finding that joy from a creative capacity like you have. So, these kinds of things, it's just, it's kind of disappointing that we as humans tend to do that with each other. Now, when you were going through your childhood and how you came to know yourself a little bit more early, what kind of things did you go through in words I want to say is overcome, and I would say integrate yourself into a larger community?
First, it was, and by the way, before I'm saying that there is spirits, other humans that pivot, they kill themselves. So I know inside, I'm very lucky that I didn't kill myself, that I didn't get into drugs, that I didn't succumb to self-doubt. Something in me, which is, which I'm very unaware, I'm a little bit aware of it, but something in me made me stay alive. And it wasn't kind of that I embraced art. It was kind of, there's 15,000 ways, and you knock on one door after the other, and the door of creativity was open. And I opened that door, and it made me breathe and live for a little bit longer. And I wasn't even conscious that I did that, and then it took me 35 years to recognize that I'm an artist. When I looked at that's how much I was out of it, so I looked at my resumes and said, oh my God, everything. I mean, so I was still waiting for society or other systems to deem me as an artist. And I looked at my resume and said, no, I am an artist. And then I owned it, then that's what I do. It doesn't matter if my product, the art is accepted by society or not. this is what I do, and this is what kept me alive. And that's what, so it kept me always alive.
Now, knocking on those doors, it was a great point you made, the 15,000 doors
Yeah.
to knock on, or however many.
Yeah.
Right? What was it, do you think now looking back,
Yeah.
was that persistence within you that was that tenacious door knocker?
I swear to God, this is a great question. I swear to God, it was like this. It was like literally, you're hungry, you want to eat. And art is what at least kept you going on. It was that extreme that the art, like I heard a certain song of music, got me through the day. I played guitar, get me through the day. I watched art, other artists. Also in the community, as you know, the arts community is very inclusive. So it's actually very spiritual because there's no discrimination of sex. It's not what I ever experienced. There's egos in the art business, but
Sure.
in the artist community, it's always
There's
together.
egos, but no prejudice.
Yeah. So there's, yeah. And there's, we do it together. Oh, we have to do a theater piece. Let's all do it together to get the piece good. Even though the star actors and his ego, it doesn't matter, but we're all working together.
Right.
And it's very reflective of human, the essential human tribe, you know? So everybody does his, and you're good at tailor, you make the costumes, you're a musician, you sing. Everybody finds, what I find in art always, everybody finds in the arts community, finds his talent. And you know, often when you go in school, they say, oh, why did you play that role? And all of a sudden this whole thing works. You know, when you switch roles with somebody, you play the bear and you play the Riding Hood, Red Riding Hood or whatever. And all of a sudden the thing that totally didn't work. You just switch two things and everything is like total flow, totally run. And everybody gets that. And see, this is the wisdom. That's why art is the fastest thing. There's no, you can read all the philosophers. You can read everything. You can go to the wisest people. The fastest way, because wisdom is a experiential knowledge that is timeless. That is, you know, you playing guitar is like you're playing guitar. It's in 10 generations, the same thing. You know, might be a different guitar, but other than it's the same thing. So that's why, and I realized this. And then 2 years ago, I was like, I couldn't believe this because I never was rich or anything, but I couldn't believe that I hear this always coming to me over my years, and it really disturbed me that 95 to 97% of worldwide artists are on the poverty level. Worldwide, 95 to 97%. So I said, how can that be? How? And that's why I wrote the Smart of Art book. And I dove in. I had no clue that I ever resolve it. I think I resolved it. I think I have the reason why. But
let me hang on for just a second. I think I missed the night. What about the 95 to 97?
95 to 97. The real successful people in the art business say it's 97. I think it's 95% of worldwide artists exist on the poverty level.
Okay, that's what.
Not over, not under.
Yeah, so hence the phrase
just
the starving artist.
As you know, just that moniker of starving artist, it's over generation integrated. And first I thought, oh, it's a system issue. You know, the system doesn't recognize art. They think it's a hobby. Yes, those are all symptoms. But I think the reason why that happens is because artists have never defined their value for humanity.
Right.
They're only for what we see, and this is where we're blind as a society. We see art as the art business, meaning the products that called art. So it's like we don't understand the creation process, that you literally take the unconscious and create in the physical. You bring the unconscious into the conscious. And that's when people fall in love with your work, because they see that process. If you don't work for the market, if you really create something that's beautiful, the art lover and the other humans, they recognize the divine interaction into bringing it into the physical. And that's when that recognized in you, you know, not only do you feel that, but you also know you're part of it. You know that that's an inner knowing that we are all connected. And that's when I got that, I was, wow. And then I found out, oh, and now the artists that are the more, because there's other facts. So there's more and more people become artists, even though 97%, 95% are poor. So tell me another job that anybody would do when 97% are on the poverty level. Nobody would do any job, not a lawyer or a farmer. It doesn't matter. Nobody.
What you said about how the artists learn to work together to manifest a project, right? Where there's multiple pieces and components that come together as one, and that, you know, switching just two roles sometimes makes all the difference. Well, I look for patterns and how those patterns are replicated throughout. Years ago, I heard T. Harv Eker say, "What you do anywhere, you do everywhere," right? So you begin to look for these patterns, and if these patterns are so, like the creative, the connection, the organization, and now I see with my business background and organizing teams and things like that, there's this idea that there needs to be certain people with certain skill sets in those positions, and sometimes they're archetypal, you know, and sometimes there's specific sets of skills that are necessary. But it's the same pattern that you're talking about. And even with D. Hawkes, beginning with Visa, he had what he called a chaotic organizational structure, which essentially was the people with the skill set seeing what needed to be done and stepping in to do those things that they were capable of doing, right? And that's the creative spirit. That's when let me ask you this, do you feel like when you step back and you simply ask, where's my place in this, that it appears?
No, because I work in a different way. So what I see, I discover I like to unveil. I think everything is already here. I don't believe in future and past. The past is the past. So I believe whatever is here is here. So you can unveil. I keep unveiling myself.
So you're in a constant apocalypse, huh?
Yes, I'm in a constantly uncertainty, unknowable. Right. And because I felt from my situation of my life, thrown into constant, so I became comfortable being uncomfortable. So what I'm looking for patterns too, but it's more when you go to the wisdom, the answers are very simple. For example, but they're not obvious, and that's the thing. So that's why I say unveiling, because they're not obvious. It's very simple. You know?
Well, this is why I asked the question, when you make yourself available and you ask, and maybe it's not the specific question or worded correctly, but you inquire of that unknown where you can fit. And then that unveiling process takes place that opens the door for you to fit.
I ask question, obviously, because, you know, my podcast is also, it's one quote and one question. It's 20 seconds to 30 seconds. That's only because it's a transformative process. My podcast is a transformative. So you only listen, there's 2 episodes a week, and you just listen to that. And that needs to be enough to plant your seed or to let that seed sprout or deny it or whatever. But the whole web of people, I believe that we can solve everything with this. I think we can believe because it makes you experience wisdom. There's no knowledge process to get to it.
Well, there is, and that's asking questions.
Yeah.
And the better questions you ask, the more unveiling occurs.
Yeah, you know, but you know that process where you say, what is it in me when you look, because actually you said that, yeah, right? So everything, life is a reflection of you. Everybody, even the people that you hate, is a reflection of you. So what is in me that I hate this person? What is it in me that I can't figure this out? And I mean, that's a famous process. I mean, I'm also a certified coach, but I'm not using it. But I'm saying because art is so much more powerful. I mean, I cannot coach people out what I can show them with art, with the art
Sure.
process. Yeah.
Well,
So
the dialogue that takes place, I would offer, and your coaching background allows you to have a deeper dialogue
exactly.
you may have normally when those questions and concerns and opportunities present themselves.
I basically took the good and said, why do I have this good? Why is that art and creativity saving me? Why is, I mean, if you ask for questions, so that those were my mind constructs about it. Said, why is that? And why me? And not why me, I'm not separate, but I'm saying, why is that the way out? Why was that the only door open? You know, because I definitely tried any door, you know? So
Did you find that in those doors, that the door that remained open for you or opened, did you find that that was when you finally just kind of relaxed and
No. There was too much struggle. I was way too much involved in struggle. This was just, okay, you want to take another breath? Here, have another breath. Listen to this record, have another breath. That's what.
So that was the persistence and tenacity that won.
Could be. I'm very I have tenacity. Absolutely. That could be. Absolutely. But it wasn't like people think, oh, now you know you're home. I mean, I know that I was home after the fact, you know?
I've heard it say that, you know, awakening is by accident. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And in most cases, it does happen that way. And yet, looking at the process that you went through to prepare for that accident was really crucial in the preparation and your ability to step into that moment more effectively. Now, when you're in that process and you're exploring and things, one of the things that I heard some time ago, it was the 5 Ps: patience, persistence, perseverance, passion, and purpose. So in the passion side of it, we've talked about the patience and the persistence and what was that, perseverance, right? Because that's really what it took from you in that 35 years to find yourself. Now, the passion and purpose, how did that evolve and grow within you during those years?
I was always a passionate person. And the perseverance was not something that came from within. That was at that time. Now it comes from within. But at that time it was, okay, there's another meal, there's another breath, there's another thing. So it was just basically essential thing to survive. So that, you know, what is the step forward? Okay, here, this rock is sturdy, you can go forward. I didn't need to know if it's good, but I just, you know, and I fell in a lot of things. But
did most of this happen in Vienna?
Actually, in the end, I was completely unconscious of all that.
Okay.
So I'm telling you now what is, but I wasn't completely. No, I was just living day by day and living that I can survive. Because when you don't fit in anywhere and nobody says, oh, hey, you will be good in painting this or doing this or thing, you just try. Then you fly, you go to America, then you do this, you just try, It's a lot of trying.
Occasionally there's a fortunate one that may come along and a benefactor, let's say, that you know, that sees what you are and have and helps you to move forward. A lot of times that's a, you know, kind of a rare case, or has been. I see that, you know, in these new times, that awareness, that observation, and that participation is increasing now. The compassion and concern for others is returning. Maybe not returning, it's appearing finally, where it hasn't.
It's reappearing. It's reappearing. That's it's literally what we have stuffed down. But you know, I thought about the success when you talk about success people. Yeah, it is absolutely the dumbest thing to say there's a formula for success, because if there was a formula, we all would do
everybody
it,
be doing it, right?
If there's a formula to get money, I would say, okay, But the system, which is other humans, so that's what the big point is, that humans are against humans with the double-sided mirror of systems in between. So we all keep being dumb. Because this is what works, the direct communication of humans. That's where the power is, not through a system. So what happens is, I found that success, money, or achievement have nothing to do with each other. They're completely separate. You can have lots of money and not successful. You can be successful, have no money. You can be achiever and not be success, and you can be achiever not having money. They are, see, but this is what the conditioning is from us, our mind, and then we create mind constructs, and then we losing ourselves. So you move into the mind construct of future, and you lose the self. So because, and also the same thing that when people say life supposed to be good, if for any reason it's not, then we have a pill for you, we have a Ferrari for you, we have a dating service for you. The dating is a $6 billion industry.
I know.
So we sell you being human. Being human is a being. That's, you can't sell that. And obviously systems can never promise you, they cannot, that you're gonna be happy, because we're all these 50, 60-year-old women, they're phenomenal. You know, getting the rich guy from our generation, getting the rich guy, having 3 kids, they all go to universities. And then they say, okay, I'm 50, 55. Why am I not happy? I have everything the system said. I should be happy. And guess what the system says? There's something wrong with you. Right. So it never, it's always you anyway. So why not unite each other with a thing and see the power, the focus is in humanity versus a system or in the universe or anywhere. It is in humanity is the maximum power. You want to experience power, you do art, you start creating art, and you can get a glimpse of that power that you have. And that's because art always forces you to be, you can be the CEO that is freaked out and work 60 hours a week and all this stuff. What are you gonna do on the weekends to come back? You tinker on your car, you tinker in your garden. We tinker. Mm-hmm. We tinker. We like to do things, tactile, haptic. We like to touch things, you know. That's a human experience of being. And that's why I think art and creativity is such a superpower. And look at the sad thing. Look at that sad thing. How often have you heard a businessman saying, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, I'm a businessman? I have heard that a million times. When, as an artist, people come to me and say, you know, I'm not an artist, I really have no idea about this. And I said, you wouldn't be even calling yourself a businessman if you weren't creative.
Exactly. We are all, in my opinion, and
yeah,
you share this as well.
Yeah.
We're all artists. We all have that
Yeah.
creative spark within us. It's just how we choose to use that in anything, whether it's a business person, an artist like yourself, a writer, musician, you know, a landscaper, even you know, the art that they create in landscape. It's just, we have that ability. Now, you talk about the prescriptive system, right?
Yeah.
In this last period, we went from kind of a reasonable global economy and being able to move around and things like that, to suddenly being told we need to be afraid of each other. Mm-hmm. And not just locally. This was a global thing that happened. Everybody got shut down. Mm-hmm. The obsession on self-hygiene was just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But still, you know, washing your hands before you eat, that's, you know, you got to do that. And of course, indoor plumbing changed the face of disease when all of that was created. Yeah. But now, you know, coming out of that with the obsession on self-hygiene and sequestration, potentially getting people to turn inward and finding that creative side of themselves and questioning who they are, what they're about, what they're connected to, who they want to be with, how they want to be, not necessarily what they want to do, but that aspect of, okay, I want to feel better. I want to find people that I connect with and do it in a different way. That seems to be the silver lining that of the pandemic. Would you, or do you see that too? Is that something that you've noticed?
I can only tell you from my experience. I can only tell you. I think, obviously, we all know, if you really think about it, how crass life was before COVID. Like flying always 24. Everybody, I need to fly there. I need to do this. I need to do this.
It was really the rat race.
Doing human. We were the perfect human doing before the COVID. What the COVID did, and now that it's still doing it, the economy, it's severing anything that wasn't good, anything that wasn't really a relationship. Because the only thing that, I mean, I'm a very social person, and literally, and I lost my job in COVID, so I focused on my 6th book that I wanted to write about systems, and I'm not finished yet, but it's almost done. And it was so captivating because all this stuff came in. I was alone in a hotel room. It was such an unbelievable growth experience that I did that. But what I found was everybody that here and then calls each other, that we look out for each other, I think completely. You would think in COVID that we call each other and find out. If I wouldn't have reached out, and I didn't need a lot of people. You know, I'm divorced. I'm not like somebody that needs to be surrounded by people, and I enjoy really my loneliness, not lonely, my solitude. You know?
Right.
So what I found though is that even on social media, people didn't reach out. They didn't care. They were so concerned, which is good, about their own health, focusing on themselves. But what they did is it kind of, I don't know if they lost it, perhaps they don't, because I tell you only my experience. I found really that the value is in the wholeness, that we are limitless human beings. We are so limitless that we extinct ourselves like a couple of generations, like the Mayans and the, you know, other cultures. So we don't need to prove to ourselves anymore that we can extinct ourselves. Nature doesn't give a crap what we do. If we destroy it, look at Chernobyl. It just, as long as one micron lives, nature comes back. The earth doesn't care, makes a thing. And look at Chernobyl. It's completely overgrown. I mean, there's the most perverse way of humans, and they've screwed up and didn't even clean it up because they couldn't, because they were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to do. And nature says, okay, it's a jungle again. See you later.
Now, one of the things that's a perfect example that, you know, nature recovers all the time. It doesn't really matter for us. And yet, okay, when we come into this life, it's the earth that gives us all the nutrients that builds our body. So we're inextricably connected to that. And yet, up until recently, we haven't even thought of the natural patterns and the biomimicry that we are now using for new technologies. So it seems that we're beginning to get a clue, right, of how that connectedness works. And we're looking at those patterns that we can now incorporate as humans. And maybe that's part of this Evo leap that we're in need of, that's actually occurring in spite of our efforts to thwart it, or at least in spite of the system's effort to thwart it. Now,
see, and I agree with you, because the thing is, but the systems are other humans, and we are applying to, you know, it's so, what I think a system is a great trash can for emotions that you need to release. You just say, oh, the damn IRS did this, or the damn this, you know, Apple didn't fix my iPhone, or whatever. But really, it's set up by other human beings, and they need to support their kids. So we have this, we need to get a new relationships, our creativity, because systems are handling creativity a lot. They handle our, they suck our life juice. They suck our limitlessness, because we are, one of our superpowers is adaptability. Without being adaptable to systems, systems have no value at all. If we don't adapt to them, we don't, and we created them. So,
and so that would indicate, now let me ask you this, can we adapt those systems instead of adapting to them? Or
of course we can, we're limitless.
Systems, and that's really what I think currently, because the systems we have, all the transportation, distribution, all those kinds of things that are in place now are fairly effective. They're just being mismanaged in how and where those things are going and who's controlling them. Now, if humanity, or if the people decided to say, hey, wait a minute, we feel like we, and this is one of the things that a great friend of mine, Swami Vyananda, you may even know of, he says, we're in a great we set. It's not a reset, it's a we set, because we as humanity now have the opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, let's change things a little bit and see what works better. Now, it doesn't mean that we have all the answers, because it's still kind of a grand experiment coming out of this. But that agile mindset of being able to adapt and be flexible and do the things that are necessary to move forward gives us the opportunity as people to learn how to get along better with each other and support that process.
But we were shamed so long by system unintentionally, because a system can do only a very small piece of what humans are capable. You know, they can do a little function first. I mean, we separated males from females, then the races, and now the sexuality. So that not because there was anything, so the system can handle our limitlessness, because we come in all shapes. No cat asks themselves, oh, is that a brown cat, a white cat, a black cat? It is just a cat. Okay, cat. Like we are humans. We are not. It's there's female in the humans and there's race in the humans, but that's a part of it, you know.
And it's quite possibly a cool cat too.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
Now you're bringing up a point that, you know, in our pre-conference we were talking about Live and Let Live Foundation and Global Peace Movement. Those are the very principles that you're talking about. There's two sides of it: the live, which is the law side of it, and the legal principle, which is, you know, don't be an aggressor, right? It's that simple, and any laws and legislation that allows that simply needs to go. The moral side of it, the moral principle, is the let live, which means as long as you do, you're free to do whatever it is you please, as long as you don't aggress upon others or harm. Right.
Harm to none is, but harm to none is, for example, in art. In art, you should do everything, but they want to even the systems go into things, because say, hey, you can't talk about the Jews, you can't talk about the blacks, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about, you need to be politically correct.
Well, so that's where intellectual humility needs to enter, so that you can discuss polarities without being polarized.
Yeah. But
complex systems don't necessarily need to be complicated.
Yes, but they need to be not, when they're outdated, they never see. A human comes and goes, leaves the planet, right? A system doesn't. A system uses more resources up from human life and life force to adapt or the outdated. Right. So it stays in place, and that's the problem. And the power.
Agreed that is the challenge that we face, or the systems that have been there for millennia. Now, that gives us the bigger picture. Okay, so let's look at a millennia, and we're just coming out of the Piscean age, getting ready to go into the Aquarian age. Some say that there's a 50-year window in between. We're right in the middle of it. And that's where the transition from that which doesn't serve to that which does serve. And so, and before that has to happen, those things that don't serve all come up to the surface for everybody to be able to see. Now, what they do about it's going to be different, right? They may do nothing. They may decide to become engaged, or they may feel prompted to be involved. All of those things are determined by the individual. not necessarily the collective. However, the collective benefits by the acts of the individuals. Now, in this transition from one age to another, it's like, you know, and even in some of the stories of the far advanced civilizations that have come here as visitors and explaining what they have gone through, similar to what we have as far as the development of a planetary civilization. It goes through phases. It goes through those patterns and those cycles, and always being able to rise to a next level. And then it's faced with a crisis that allows it to take an evil leap to yet a new level. And I kind of wonder if that's where we're at right now in that big picture kind of view in what was created. However it was, we had to deal with a global issue which rallied everyone. And some accepted it, some didn't, but it still rallied people to come together and move on somehow.
Yeah, and everybody, but I think this is just a creation of that's a symptom of, you know, that now anything that you open it up is overflown with people because they were 2 years locked in. And I think that's just a symptom of that, because people look for safety and they think safety is going backwards or hanging on to the system. But the problem is with systems that we need to be conscious about is systems are 24 hours running. They have a limited, very limited purpose, and they can do that 24 hours. Human need to sleep, has cycles, periods, there's seasons.
Biorhythms.
Biorhythms for, guess what? Balance, because the real power is not power over or power under, or that everybody has the same power, because the ant is not an elephant and the elephant is no ant. It's the balance that when you exist in nature, and we are part of nature, there's no denying, when you exist in nature, you are valuable. You exist, you have value because you exist. That has nothing to do with God. This is all, God is an explanation of that.
Right.
It is not a spirituality, no knowledge. You in nature, everybody can see this. The littlest kid, 5-year-old kid can see this. There's an ant and there's an elephant. It doesn't mean in 10 years that there's only elephants because they're bigger and they destroy everything, right? So, but system work, they are human created. They're not created by a divine or matrix or universe. So humans, the arrogance of humans to think we have to, you know, there's this famous shiny object system that we say, oh, we created, look at the city, look at Shanghai, right. What we did out of that poor thing, we did that. And they say this is more valuable than our humanity. And people look at it, they look at Apple or Nike or whatever, they say, I'm not like that. That is way better than me. Instead of looking at it and saying, you know what, there is Apple, there's Nike, there is this other brand. What a fascinating thing that, or, you know, technical device that they can save something or whatever. You say, wow, that was created by humans, by together, number one, by not one human, but humans together. And I'm a freaking part of that. We don't look at it. We say, oh my God, I'm less worth because look at that shiny object.
Right.
And we look at the power they have. Screw the power. That power isn't worth anything. Yeah. If it can be balanced, we can't recognize humanity. We have forgotten humanity.
Now, Aurobindo said years ago, and I'm sure you're familiar with him, that
who was it?
Sri Aurobindo.
No, I'm not a spiritual or astrology. Because I couldn't understand it, and I can only talk very much about art. We can talk about every context, but I can only, you know.
I think you'll get what his point was. Yeah. He was an Eastern Christian mystic that there's actually a ashram in Pondicherry, India, that is based on his work, and it's where the Nag Champa incense comes from. But he said he wrote a book called Sri Aurobindo, or The Adventures of Consciousness. And in that, he said, in order to find your center, you must step into the middle of chaos. And chaos we see as anomalies, right? That there's, it's uncontrollable. And yet, when you step into it, I know for me, and I'm sure for you, when you step into the chaos of, okay, what am I going to create next? And for me, and stepping into an event of 250,000 people and having to organize them in a way that's consistent and safe, right? So those kinds of things, they're patterns that exist, that when you can stand in the center and begin to observe those patterns, all of a sudden there's essentially a harmony that comes into place. And sometimes we see that as balance, right? And yet the harmony is the effective management of all the patterns in the chaos that we don't have control over, right? It's how we maneuver through those, learn how to navigate and rise above in some cases when they're, when they're disturbing, and yet there's still this forward motion that's taking place simply because you're making steps to do so. Now, how do you see that process in relation to the art and the transition, trans
something.
Transcend, yeah, trans. It's trance, right? We're in a trance. It's the transcend dance, right?
Yeah.
So in the transcendence of that, that's the word I was looking for. How does the art and the process and the system allow the flow toward greater integration and balance?
I think it's always the perception, because when you look at the fountain, I make it very, very simple. So you look at the fountain, and the sun is shining, and you take a little, nephew or whatever, and you say, look, I show you something, and you go around the fountain, and all of a sudden you hit the right light, and the rainbow appears right in the fountain, because the sun is thing.
Right.
So it's a perception.
And you go, oh,
wow,
beautiful. Yeah.
And once you know that, you experience the wisdom of water and prism and light.
Right.
So you don't have to show that kid, because everybody I tell that metaphor, everybody understands it. So
when
there's
you
a perception.
experience it, right?
And that's why it's never gonna leave you. You will never forget that.
It's an awe.
Yeah.
Right. It's a sense of awe.
And that's what a symphony is: dissonance and harmony in balance. So balance is always the power, because why can nature always comes back? Not because the elephant is stronger or the ant is weaker. It's the interconnectiveness of fungi. There's no judgment. You exist and you're valuable. If the elephant tramples on the ants, they recover because a fungus comes and whatever. That doesn't mean, balance doesn't mean nobody's going to die. Nobody is going to be the one that ruins it for all. It is just, we believe in that vibration of us all, humanity, and and that gives us the safety. Not because 8 people own half the world. Half the workforce makes $5.50. 1% of people own 60% of their capital. Systems, because they're so limited, their output is limited. And this, what I just mentioned, are the results of these systems. They are the results. There are inadequacy, there are segregation, and then we create another system. This is the perversion. We create another system to be politically correct, because we have no tact anymore. We don't know what's true anymore. We don't have a perspective like you and I. We're not perfect. We don't know everything, but we have a bigger perspective. And we are not better. That's our part. Like somebody else makes good shoes,
We just live our lives in how we feel they ought to be lived. And it's a feeling, it's a sensation. It's even at times a knowing because of what our experience has been. Now, let's go back to nature for just a moment. And what you were describing is on the surface of the planet, right?
Yeah.
And just underneath that, we have found out that there's this infrastructure in the roots and the mitochondria and all the things of how all the plants are talking to each other underneath the surface. So if we could use nature as an example, right, in the inner and outer life, which we live half inside and half outside. Can we agree on that? Okay. So in that, then that inside life would be kind of what's below the surface. Is it possible, do you think, that there is a mechanism or a system built in naturally within humanity that connects us in that inner network, in that under the surface capacity?
Absolutely. I think energetically, I see where I'm guest on podcasts. I see I'm not getting somebody that it seems that, and that's why we are connected. Even the people that are totally business, I talk a little bit and they connect to me on the human level. On the system level, we might not connect, but because, you are more into astrology and spirituality and the wisdom of that. And I have no
I've got 2 master's degrees in business.
Yeah.
I am an organizer. I'm a project manager. Yeah. That really doesn't have much to do with astrology or spirituality, although the best practices do overlap.
Yeah. Everything overlaps. Everything that is overlaps. But I think it overlaps also because we are all interconnected, and it won't allow us not to overlap. The thing is, when we do mind constructs, it's almost like we go away from our center. Everything, and that's why I say balance. Everything is in the center, and when you lose your center, and somebody comes and yells at you, and you start reacting to that,
you get wobbly.
And you get wobbly. You react to it, and you go into it to manipulate it to get back into balance, but by that you are totally out of balance.
Sure.
So
in that situation, where's the flow? What do you do? What would you do or suggest that others do when they experience that perceived conflict?
I think you have to recondition yourself that everything, what you said at the beginning, your beginning words, that everything is a reflection of you. And no matter if you like it, it's not the point is not if you like it, if you're because only systems disassociate. It doesn't, whatever happens, if somebody comes right now in with a shotgun, it's a reflection of me. I'm not saying it's my fault, it's his fault. That's the distraction, that you lose your perspective.
Right.
When you can see the world as a reflection of you, that you are the sender and the receiver, I think that's what needs to be reconditioned, that there isn't another person out there. They're all a reflection of you, and we're all interconnected, and together we can solve any problem because we are limitless.
Exactly.
The systems are not the solution, because the system were created by us, flawed human beings, only as a small part of our limitlessness. So if you are a master system navigator and you're great, you basically give up of your essence. If it's, it might be your vocation too, but you give up to your essence to be in that system and navigate and be great. But other people where the system has no need for, so how can something that we created knows that there's no need for us, so we should be poor, like artists, for example, right? Why should they? Because they're unconscious that they never defined their values, which I do now. This is my job.
And I think maybe that's, absolutely, that's your job. And as an artist, that's
that is part of my job. Yeah. We are the stewards of the being of human being, because that's why I think, and so, but I also see there's almost no mentorship anymore, that, because it all focused on the system, and the system art in the system is the art business, which deals with products. It doesn't deal with the magic of art, with the creation that is in it's separated. It doesn't deal with what everybody has in themselves. Like you say, that we are all creators, whatever we do.
Well, we are. And I can relate to the artistry in both from a production standpoint,
Yeah.
you know, playing in a band, doing stage shows, things like that. And then also, you know, I mentioned that, you know, I ran events that had 250,000 people in a weekend. And it was the largest arts and crafts event in the Southwest US. It's called
Nice.
the Old Town Tempe Arts Festival. And I was one of the guys that ran it in the decade of the 90s. I had 350 vendors and 20 food vendors in my area. There was over 1,000 vendors total. And what I noticed was exactly what you're saying. They were in the system. They were marketing product, not necessarily themselves. And although there were relationships that were developed, and over time, I had quite wonderful relationships with some of the artists that would show up on a regular basis. And so those relationships really were wonderful. And yet there was this notion of okay, you got 250,000 people and you got 1,000 vendors, and how many each person may spend $10 there, then how does that distribute through those 1,000 vendors, and what, you know, so that's pennies on the dollar that they spend hundreds of dollars to be there, and what's their return going to be? So there's that, again, there's that system that you're talking about. And the successful ones I found were those that were there in person. They weren't concerned about the sales. What they were doing was creating relationships with the patrons, even if it was short term, right? And even, you know, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, is one thing that we've heard for years. And that's absolutely true. Why would someone want to engage you if you don't show them any concern?
I see that, but what I see also is that in the product, you know, we don't need art. We don't need art to buy the product. We need to have an awareness that art is in everyone. And artists are now so disturbed already that they see only their product. They don't see the most valuable is the creation. And the more, the better they create, meaning the more they focus on the process and observe themselves, who is talking about talking to the unphysical.
That's the self-awareness that you talk about.
And I started the self-aware artist movement in 2015 in Laguna Beach, about, you know, that you, the artist, know why you create what you create, and that you can actually verbalize it and tell others. You know, I'm very much in the mentoring.
P. That's the purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. The mentoring is and artists are not aware at all that they are art is the language of wisdom. Number one, nobody knows. So I unveiled that again, that we are here to be the stewards of the being of, because there is no world if we can create it. But we are so, those systems and generation, we're so separated that a businessman said, I'm not an artist. And that the artist doesn't think, see, this is just disturbing what the system does. Everybody in this world says they're not artists, even though everybody is. So if the perspective of the rainbow, I come back to that, we don't see the rainbow. And the other thing is the artist thinks about not about the sacred process of creating. He thinks it's more important that he can survive. I understand that. I'm not saying you shouldn't get money, but if the consciousness would realize why art, and I've talked to people that have spent millions of dollars on museums, and I've talked to them, so why did you do that? Couldn't give me an answer. Oh, because, you know, the 9/11 short answer is, oh, art is important for humanity. That's it.
Right.
But nobody could say why. I can talk 8 hours about why it's important, you know, like what we talked about.
And that seems to be what we've been missing in life, is our why.
Yeah.
There's a whole movement about that. Simon Sinek, you know, he's all about what's your why?
Yeah. Why do you do it? Why doing it? You know?
Yeah.
And I think that it is essential to really look, and it's for artists, it is our destiny, basically. See, when you have no value, so 95% are poor, right? So you have in the system no value, and you have no awareness, about excitement of what the creation process, what a magician you are, creating that, being able to conjure, because you weren't attracted to it if you wouldn't do it, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
that if so,
And
there's
it's coming
two,
from within you.
exactly. And so what you learn by that is priceless, but you don't see it. You don't have the right perspective, and you're told a lie your whole life. And that's where I think the system, that humans hurt each other by having that veil and say, you know, in the future, you know, buy that Ferrari and you will never have a problem with that woman or with that man. Buy this, you know, get that pill and you will be the sexual monster. Get that.
You can't
It's,
buy happiness. You can rent it for a little bit, maybe.
yeah,
But,
it's very, and
you know.
have you not, in systems, it's always short term.
Yeah.
Business too. Today, businesses are like 2-3 years. If you don't make it in 1 year and then get out, you know, it's just the shorter the life, because the limitlessness shows itself. The limitless shows itself. It's so limited system.
And it's visible, it's experienceable. And in the agile framework now that we're going into, the business owners, entrepreneurs are realizing that happiness is crucial. And when you prepare the way for those, whether it's an artist group that's putting on a performance,
Yeah.
or a company that's producing a product or a service, it's the people that get the job done. And so they're paying more attention, or beginning to, on the compassion and concern for the people. And what's that do? Well, it gets the people to be a little bit more happy. And lo and behold, happy people get more done with less supervision, and will far exceed the expectations you might have on them when you give them the tools and the support and let them do their thing.
Let them use their limitlessness.
Right.
Don't tell them what to do and libel suits and whatever. Just let them do, because because we are limitless, therefore the system can say, what if this happens? So you can make limitless thing why you can't do anything and why you're not supposed to, and because control. But we know control, always the more you control. This is a perfect example. Will Smith hitting in the most controlled environment, and nobody saw that except me. I don't know, perhaps that metaphor doesn't think, for me, that metaphor was, for the world, is there's a system that's more controlled than the Pentagon, the Oscars, right? That is a controlled system, and all that participated are system connected, means all the artists are politically correct, are good doers, and I think, and even in this system,
Will stepped outside of it.
Will gives him a minority that's supposedly something special, hits another minority, and then gives them everything, because everybody could not and would not dare to use their limitless. So everybody watched the whole thing. In a tribe, you know, if that happens in an ancient tribe, that guy would say, you get out and you go in the woods and find yourself. And they would never, the ceremony would have been done, would have given them somebody, but he wouldn't be there. He would, and I'm not saying he's bad or anything. I'm looking at what is the metaphor.
Well, absolutely. It was almost an archetypal presentation.
Exactly.
Of a
very good. You said it. Yeah, you said it. Yeah. And the same is with Putin. So where are systems good for? Any system is built for safety, security, and that we have peace, that humans have peace. From a tribe to a multinational thing, to a state, to a United States, to Russia. So a system is built for the purpose of peace, where if I say, okay, now this went awry because of Putin and Zelensky, I think they're both a part of it.
I would also say, including those 8 people that own everything,
exactly,
and their narrative about the situation, because we've created an enemy where none exists.
Exactly, because the people of Russia are not bad, and even culture was, I mean, I couldn't believe that the art business, because that's why it's a business, it's not art, because the community would have never done that. But the art business Even government business said no Russian thing, no Russian this, no Russian this.
I
And I
know.
said,
And you got the Hermitage in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Right? That's the center of cultural presentation for almost a globe.
Can you imagine the Russian culture would be separated from other human cultures? What is then I think art is completely worthless. If we say that then the art system, the art business is completely worthless, if we say, you know, it's a universal language, art is the universal language. And that alone shows you, watch out, this is something important.
Right. Some say music would be, but that's still art.
Art, that's still art. And you tell me, and I say, okay, cut out the contribution that Russian people had on culture. How can you say that? That is meaning saying, you know what, this is exactly the racism. It's like, you know, these kind of people are not part of society. That's a pogrom. That's you know, that's a Holocaust. Right. That is a Holocaust in the confines of art. How the hell can that happen? How can we, any of the art business, even have the arrogance to say, you know what, we just cut out Russian artists. Art says harm to none. Every art, it's not about killing, it's not about, it's all together. And how can we allow this? Because we're so blinded and afraid, and we are not aware. We are not aware. We think still systems can save us.
So let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
With that statement you made, and we're kind of coming to a close. So I'm going to ask you to kind of frame this and possibly even an advisory method, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned we're unconscious. Mm-hmm. What's something that one could do simply to help open their awareness?
Go to podcasts. I did 30 podcasts all over the world as a guest. Mm-hmm. I do whatever I can do the best. You know, I cannot do other things, but be the best you can be.
I'm talking about on an individual basis, not engaging the system, right? Because the internet is part of the system. And although some use it wisely, some don't. However, on an individual basis, outside of the system, only internally, what is a simple activity that one might engage to open their awareness?
Spread the word that the power, the absolute power, is in us together, in inclusive. That the power is not over people. We can solve everything inclusive. The power is not over people. It's in a balance, that we balance each other, that everybody can be. If everybody says, I am the best that I can be, I will be the best. Not for the system, not for my family, it's because that's where you give life thing. I'm the best that I can be. I can go every night to sleep then, and I can go to sleep and they said, I did the best that I can do. I go every day, and I think if everybody would do this, we are way better than we expect or even imagine, because we are limitless. We can solve I mean, I go to every problem and they say, we can solve it. We can understand it at least. And once we're understanding, the solution will come, which you ask a question and it will come.
Yep, very well.
And so we can, together, we can do anything.
That I agree with wholeheartedly. And Michaell, I really appreciate your time, the conversation, the depth, and the understanding that you shared. And hopefully, well, I know our audience will enjoy the conversation that we had. And I so appreciate your time and energy.
Yeah. And you can find me.
I'll have everything below the video on the.
Yeah, michaellam.com. Yeah, Michaell with 2 L's. And anytime, if you want to do another talk, anytime, Wonderful.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Zen. Appreciate it.
Namaste and in la catch. Thanks for sticking with us for another episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and I will see you next time.